Hello and welcome to the review of the responses we got for the 10 questions for atheists.
What is going on with my camera?
They have properly been drinking and on drugs, so these answers are probably going to get better as they progress.
Getting massacred.
Just want to make sure that I can be heard, essentially.
What are you guys talking about?
Well, a lot of people are going to hate this, but typically I just use the term atheist.
You know, I think there's only the natural world. Reality is exhausted by nature.
That's the best face. That's the best face ever. I'm really happy with that.
We're going to get like
this is a philosophy channel now, and they're going to be reviewing this, so they will pick on you.
These questions really sound like they're written by atheists. Right?
Hello and welcome to Answers in Reason's 10 questions for atheists. I'm Joe.
And I'm Dave.
And today we are going to be reviewing question 1. Now, question 1 asked, what label do you use for yourself and what does that mean for you? The idea of that question wasn't to inspire any debate about the definition of atheism. In fact, it was just to find how people actually use their labels, what it meant to them, and display any statistical information that we could so other people can actually go, oh, wow, you know, this is how it's other people look at it. Obviously, more responses will come in over time, and that may change any leanings that there are. But at the 14th of December, this is how the statistics look. But before we get to the statistics, we are going to be reviewing a few of the video responses that we've got. Now, I do apologize for not including all of them, but we are trying to give a even spread of the responses.
If there were a similar number of responses, we just condensed it to one reply. I think that we just picked one off the top of our heads to represent the whole of that section.
So first of all, we are going to review the videos, and then we shall have a look at the statistical information from all of the responses. Now, I've only collated the information from our YouTube channel, the comments underneath it, but I do realize that there are other responses elsewhere. But everybody is free to verify all the videos and all of the comments to see that this statistical information is at least somewhat accurate. As I said, it may change in time. There may be more responses, but for now, at this time, it is accurate.
The label that I think fits me the best is atheist or theological non-cognitivist. Sometimes these are defined as someone who believes that the concept of God has no coherent meaning, but I have a somewhat softer stance in that if the concept of God is coherent, its coherence is simply unrecognizable to me. I leave open the possibility that maybe the idea of God is perfectly coherent and I'm just not getting it. The reason I don't find the idea of God coherent is that philosophers of religion, especially those who are apologists, will describe God as being a timeless, spaceless, disembodied mind, and that seems self-contradictory to me. What does it mean to say that something exists if it exists spacelessly? That is, it doesn't exist in any place. And timelessly, that is, it doesn't exist at or for any time. I've never heard any theist give a definition of what it means for God, or anything else for that matter, to exist. Existence seems to me to mean having location in space-time. If it's not that, what is it? The idea of a disembodied mind seems self-contradictory to me as well, because I find David Hume's bundle theory of self to be pretty convincing. He believed that your self, your mind, seemed to be nothing more than a bundle of activities. It consists of perceiving, thinking, feeling, etc. If these activities stop, it seems to me that the mind ceases to exist. And what is carrying out these activities if it isn't the brain? A disembodied mind seems to me to be the idea that there is an activity which is carried out by the brain, but with no brain. In fact, these activities occur without anything carrying them out. How does that make any sense? I know a theist might say that a soul carries them out, but what does it mean to say that a soul exists? Does a soul have a location in space-time? If not, I don't understand what it means to say that one exists, let alone carries out activities.
So that was our first response from TMM. Thank you, TMM. He identifies as an atheist or theological non-cognitivist. And I actually agree with that in regards to some gods. I think some are described in a really incoherent way or are very ill-defined or have contradictory statements made about them. So I understand the position, although I don't think necessarily every God claim is the same as that. What about you, Dave?
I'm the same. This is one of the reasons why I believe God does not exist. I sort of adopt the possibility entails conceivability. So if you can conceive of something, then it's possible, but I can't actually conceive of most gods. So I agree with this, but rather than just going the atheist route and saying, well, I don't know, I still think there is meaningful discussion to be had about gods, so I lean towards the atheism.
Fair. So, as I said, thank you, TMM, for that response, and on with the next one.
Nice one, TMM.
Okay, this is cool. It does look like these questions are divided up into nice little blocks on these on this video, so that's quite good. Okay, I used the label. Let me put myself back full screen. I used the label atheist to describe myself. Now, I think I've mentioned before that I've been going for a bit of a change where I would have very much subscribed. And again, I know that the point of this question was not a definitions discussion, but I think I would have very much used the sort of defining it as just lacking a belief a few months ago. My thoughts have begun to change around that, and the way I feel, I tend to. I would have said I merely lack a belief. I now more lean towards actively believing that there is no God, and I will admit that is a belief position, and it's one that I've got to be honest, I'm not entirely sure I've got a good reason to hold that position at the moment, and I am, trying to figure some of this stuff out a bit at the moment. So I guess that would be my answer to that question.
And that was a response from Jeff, or Godless Scummer. Thank you, Jeff. And that was refreshingly honest as well, don't you think, Dave?
I do. It's rare to hear somebody say, well, I hold this position, but I'm not sure I'm particularly justified in holding this position. And I think there's a lot of people that are in that kind of situation, more than would actually admit. Because oftentimes we kind of hold this belief, and we just kind of hold it intuitively and don't have access to our internal justifications. Of course, under certain accounts, he might be considered to be holding an irrational position, but that doesn't really matter. Not at this thing, because he could go out and learn more, have more discussions, and learn to justify it.
Oh, definitely. And I think this is one of the problems you find with some who say they only lack belief, which is a perfectly valid position to hold, but they feel that they don't have to justify why they only lack belief. And that's a bit of a mistake. Every position that you hold is one that you have to justify. And obviously, the stronger your claim becomes, going through belief to truth or knowledge claims, then yes, obviously, you need a stronger justification to be rational in that position. But I think that it's quite interesting to hear someone actually say, I'm not sure I'm justified in that, because it means he's aware and that he probably will be exploring this position more and finding out more about his thoughts on the matter. So I hope he does do some more research and look into things and get to a point where he can fully justify his position, or perhaps if he realizes he can't, maybe be swayed to another position. There's nothing wrong with that either. But Dave and I have done a brief video. There's a highlight that's about 20, 25 minutes long of how we justify how we hold the belief gods do not exist. So if anyone's interested in that, then there's a link to it coming up right now. Time for the next one.
Question 1. What label do I use for myself, and what does it mean to me? I use the label atheist, although agnostic would probably be more accurate. To me, it means I don't believe in any gods. I don't believe any gods exist, but I am open to the possibility should anyone ever provide evidence for the existence of a God. I use the atheist label for demographic reasons. Currently, in the United States, there are about 4% of people who identify as atheists, 3% who identify as agnostic, but 21% of the U.S. population is religiously unaffiliated. Politicians do not currently consider us a significant demographic, such that they find a need to address our political stances. But if we band together under one label, we are a significant portion of the population. Politicians are more likely to listen to us and consider our opinions if we do band together. Thus, I would like to see more unbelievers claim the atheist moniker, even if they need to clarify what type of atheist they are.
Now, that was an interesting take from Godless Granny. She says that she's an atheist, but agnostic would probably be a more accurate label, though she uses atheist for demographic reasons. And you can understand that somewhere like America, where there is a lot more impact from religion than there is sort of over in the UK, isn't there, Dave?
Yeah, definitely. And over here, people don't use their religion as like a power or a tool or anything like that.
Yeah, so I can definitely understand why you might need to band together under a particular label. I would question why that label has to be atheist. I don't see why it couldn't be your nuns or your non-religious or non-theist or whatever. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, because I imagine that you're all secular non-theists of some description, and it makes sense for you to group together and have that additional power and get those politicians to listen to you, especially around policies that may be infringing on your rights. The one thing that I do think we should address there, though, is saying you don't believe, but you're open to the possibility. And I do think that even me holding the belief gods don't exist, I am very open to the possibility that there could be a God, and I'm always willing to listen to new arguments. I find that there is sometimes people putting something out there going, well, if you believe this, then you're not open to change. But that's wrong, because we always are open to changing our beliefs. Don't get me wrong, some people are very fixed in specific positions, but how many times have you changed your beliefs throughout your entire life? I mean, think about it. If you've come from a religious background, you've changed your belief from believing in a god or gods to not believing or actively disbelieving. So you are open to changing your belief, whatever that position is.
And you bringing up religion there makes a really excellent point, because those are quite firm beliefs for most people. So if you could change your mind from that firm belief, then believing gods does not exist does not entail not being open to evidence. It probably entails being slightly more open to evidence than believing God does exist in that way.
Yeah, definitely. But thank you for that, Godless Granny, and I look forward to coming to more of your answers in the future as well.
Yeah, brilliant.
So, time for our next one.
Well, first and foremost, I'm a skeptic. That is the first label that I get. And then the second label is I'm a former theist. And then I am an agnostic atheist. Because you cannot be a pure atheist or a pure theist if you are also a skeptic. Because my opinion is that if you are a skeptic, you should be open to reason, debate, and argument changing your mind. And if reason, debate, argument, and evidence can change your mind and be presented to you in a way that changes your mind, then you need to be open to that. So if you close yourself off and say, I am a complete atheist, there is no way that a God can exist, that's not skepticism, in my opinion, because you have shut yourself down to the reason and you've shut yourself down to evidence being presented to you.
So that was Phoebe on a Mathpig stream. Now, I know there were a bunch of people who responded, but as I mentioned at the beginning, There are a lot of similar responses across the videos, and we've tried to pick out as many unique ones as possible. And this is definitely one of the most unique answers. She went with skeptic, former theist, agnostic, atheist, and made the claim that you can't be a pure atheist or theist if you're a skeptic, because you have to be open to reason and debate. And apparently, if you're a pure theist or pure atheist, you're not. I mean, what do you think about that, Dave?
I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, I can agree with separating out all the different things as a sort of distinction. Say, well, I'm a skeptic first. Okay, so you put that before your atheism or your agnostic atheism. But you can still be skeptical of the claim that God does not exist, and skeptical of, you can still be skeptical of the claim God does not exist and not hold to it fervently. Having a belief about something, like we just discussed with Godless Granny, holding a belief about something doesn't mean you are concretely embedded in that belief for all time. I mean, I still discuss and debate and read and look at arguments in the philosophy of religion to try and show that God does exist. I'm just not convinced or compelled by them.
I mean, I'd agree with you there. I mean, there have been times when I've been incredibly certain on something and thought I knew all the facts. And then new information was presented to me and I reassessed my position and changed my mind. I don't think being a skeptic isn't holding any strong position. It's being willing to reconsider your position no matter how strong. It's more than simply doubting everything. It's more of a methodology. It's critical thought that you put yourself under and other claims under, and take the time to reanalyze everything when something new pops up.
Oh yeah, and I can vouch for you changing your mind when new arguments and new information are presented, because I've done it a couple of times.
You have. Wanker.
Yep, that's me. There you are, enjoying life, believing all these things, and I come along and throw it into chaos.
Too many existential crises. Crises?
See, now you're in another existential crisis. How to pronounce crises?
So yeah, and there wasn't really a full-on description of what you meant by agnostic atheist there as well, but I imagine you went along the lines of I don't know, but I don't believe, and we got a number of other responses about agnostic atheist being that, and it's one of those things that sort of doesn't make sense, or at least it's superfluous. Because if you understand knowledge as being a very specific, rigorous form of belief, then if you say you don't believe, you're already saying you don't have knowledge. I could perhaps understand that you feeling the need to put it in there if you're saying, well, I believe gods don't exist, but I'm not claiming knowledge. But again, that's a misunderstanding, because if you're saying I believe this, you're not saying I have knowledge of this. You're literally just saying, well, this is what I think is most likely. And there is a bit of confusion that seems to be going on within the atheist community with this whole agnostic atheist label that goes on. It's still perfectly valid label, of course, but I just think there's some issues with the epistemology behind it.
It also doesn't quite, using that kind of quadrant thing, it also kind of excludes what we hold. Because the claim is agnostic atheism is not believing but not knowing. And Gnostic atheism is knowing and not believing. But we're somewhere in the middle of that.
Yeah.
We don't know, but we believe the opposite of the claim.
Yes, exactly. What's also funny about that is with that the quadrant as well. It's saying they have knowledge, but they don't believe. But if you're saying you have knowledge, as we just mentioned, you're already saying that you believe. So really, all you need to just say is, "I know gods don't exist." And actually, on the Mathpig stream, there were 2 people that said that they know gods don't exist. They feel they know gods don't exist, especially when it comes to the Abrahamic deity, and identified as Gnostic atheists. They didn't say, "I know, but I don't believe." So I think they were at least clear on that point. But yeah, the atheist quadrant is really sort of confused, garbled nonsense.
To me, yeah. I mean, I can see why people use it. It's just I don't really like it.
Yeah. So on with the next one.
Fabio, don't say that Italian.
No, I'm old school. So you will have to define. You'll have to tell me the claim before.
Well, the thing it is what label do you use to describe yourself,
No.
and what does that mean to you?
You can see it.
Right, and I would say that it depends on the divinity claim which is presented to me.
I like that answer.
This is why we brought
we're
Fabio
talking
on.
about, the Abrahamic God. If that's the case, I would be an atheist, and by atheist I mean that I negate the divinity claim. So yeah, but it depends on the claim that is presented to me. I cannot say I am an atheist toward the Norse gods, because I don't know shit about them. So you present a claim, you present a divinity claim, and I evaluate at the best of my possibilities and understanding, and and I can either be an atheist, I can either be or a theist. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Well, in reference to the Christian God, I'm going to put the Christian God of the Bible at you.
Yeah, no, I told you. I mean, in reference to the Christian God, I will call myself an atheist. So because I would happily negate the divinity claim.
And that was Fabio, also from the Mathpig stream. Now, what Fabio seems to be describing there is the separation of local and global labels, but without really realizing that he's doing that. Perhaps he is not aware of the label. I do understand thinking about, what you would say for each individual God claim. That makes sense. But the reason we have these local and global atheist or non-theist type labels is they can provide that clear and concise split. Now, Dave, would you like to explain those in a bit more detail for us?
Yep. Okay, so this distinction can be found in Paul Draper's entry for the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. And what it basically means, if you're a local atheist, you kind of refute the idea that certain God claims are true. And you say, like, the Christian God doesn't exist. Allah doesn't exist. The Jade Emperor doesn't exist. You're making a claim about a very specific God. Whereas if you're a global atheist, you basically dismiss all God claims as false. So you can sort of remain agnostic to a global claim, but dismiss all other God claims. And I mean, to some extent, I can kind of see where Fabio is coming from, where there may be a God concept that he's not been introduced to, so he can't actually make a statement about whether he believes they do or do not exist. But I'm not really sure you have to be that specific. You can still say, well, I believe gods don't exist. But if I'm presented with a claim, I'll look at it and it may change my mind.
Yeah, that is actually something I have come across on the internet before. Someone saying that, well, I say I'm agnostic because that there could be a claim out there that I'm unaware of. But for all the gods on Earth, I believe none of them exist. It's like, right. So you actually have a strong position for every single god on this planet that you're aware of, but because there could be some God that you're not aware of yet, you're not willing to actually say you hold that position. That's very interesting. Now, I know Fabio didn't do that. He clearly said, I don't know anything about the Norse gods. And that's fair enough, you know. So using Draper's terms there, you know, he is locally atheist, but globally agnostic. But, you know, as he says, whatever label is presented to me depends on what I am.
Yeah, which I can understand. I don't hold to that myself, but I can understand that.
Yeah, I mean, even one of our authors, Kristen, would say that she is locally atheist but globally agnostic, and I mean, it's a perfectly reasonable position to hold. You know, there's no reason to say that you have to believe no gods exist. We're not trying to get people to say that when that's not the position that they hold. It's just saying, you know, that there are different ways you can describe yourself.
And I mean, you could use the term agnostic atheist a bit more respectfully if you use those terms. Well, I'm an agnostic atheist. I'm agnostic globally, but locally atheist, rather than the quadrant idea.
I'd agree with that. But yes, but locally atheist, globally agnostic is not the same thing as agnostic atheist.
Yeah.
But I wish that is what people actually meant when they said agnostic atheist. I wish they were saying, you know, globally agnostic, locally atheist, because that would be a much, much better and clearer way to use that particular label, at least as far as I'm concerned.
It would impart a lot more information, at least to me anyway.
So they're the videos that we are going to review tonight. There were a few others, and thank you everybody who has sent them in. As I said, we were trying to single out the unique responses, and we will be doing that to the other responses that we get as well. And we will be doing our best to include those of you who didn't get included in this one in future videos as well. Especially when we got to the question like the morality question. There were some very, very diverse results in that. So I'm very much looking forward to getting to that one. But before we go tonight, we do have the statistics that I put together. Now, of the people that responded, the vast majority identified as just an atheist. Just simply an atheist. There were agnostic atheists in there, or people saying I don't label myself, Gnostic atheists, and agnostics, and all sorts. But the vast majority of people identified as atheist. And part of the question was to say, well, what does that label mean to you? And I was quite surprised by the results of this. So if we just switch to the next graph, if you can see here, the vast majority of people actually said that they believe there are no gods. They hold to the sort of classical philosophical definition of atheism, which I was surprised about, because even though that's the definition I hold to myself and I experience when I discuss this with people who don't debate online, when I interact with people online, so many will claim that, you know, lack belief in gods is the most common, and that's what everybody uses, and you know, we're all other definitions are stupid or useless or anything like that. So very, very, very interesting at these results, don't you think, Dave?
Absolutely, especially when there's a lot of claims like the lack of belief definition is the most common one used, and you get a lot of them saying, well, I barely ever come across somebody who says that they believe God does not exist, or that's what atheism means. And yet, here's the statistics from our stuff. I could say here that perhaps the data is a bit skewed because it's our channel and we tend to be a more philosophical channel. But I feel like the bias wouldn't skew the data that much.
No, and I also think a lot of the responses we got in were from people like TMM and T-Jump and other channels that are much bigger than ours and would have had quite a big atheist or non-theist following. And for those people to say, you know, I've come from this channel and I identify this way, again, it's okay. That's really, really interesting that you guys have all said that you believe there are no gods.
Yeah.
Now, as I said, this data is at the 14th of December, and this may change in the future. There isn't a massive, massive number. It's not the biggest data set ever, but yeah, still interesting.
We probably encouraged a bunch of people to flock the comment section now to change that data.
In fact, that would be interesting. 1 year from today, let's have a review and see if this data is still the same. You watch someone making 1 million accounts just to say, just to. But I mean, that's it. That's the end of the statistical analysis. Hopefully, you have enjoyed this stream. I look forward to reviewing more of the questions. Obviously, we've got another 9 questions from the theists and 9 questions from the atheists to address in the future. And yeah, let us know what you think in the comments and do all that like, subscribe stuff if you so feel the need to. And if there is anything you want to contest, let us know and maybe you can come on stream and have a chat with us about it.
Yeah, definitely.
So you've been watching Answers in Reason, and I'm Joe.
And I'm Dave.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.